Are we living in darkness or in light? Tiankong Tran, Ph.D. Why are there the sages? Does man need the sages? Today, are we living in darkness or in light? Why is it that, even with the sages, we are living in darkness? Those are 4 questions that we will try to answer in this chapter. Section 1. Why are there the sages? A person is born and lives. And everybody lives in a world full of things. Man needs things to feed himself. Other animals also need things to feed themselves. A tiger must catch prey. In catching prey, it has to fight with other tigers and other animals. Its life continues like that, and it seems that there is no tiger sage that teaches it to behave otherwise. Men call living in such a fixed way living by instinct. A person also needs foods to eat and to drink. He is also in the situation to hunt for prey. He is also in the position to fight with other persons and other animals. However, a person does not have only one way of living, that is to hunt for prey in fighting with others. Man is an animal that poses these 2 questions. 1. Does man live by bread alone? 2. Does man live in fighting with others? Most of us will reply, 1. Man lives by bread alone, or at least bread is principle, that is his happiness. 2. Rivalry is indispensable. But in mankind there are persons who see that, in quest for man's happiness. 1. Man does not live by bread alone. Bread is not principle, something other than bread is principle. 2. Rivalry is avoidable. These persons are called sages. In summary, the sages have a view that is different from ordinary people's view and try to teach the truth that they see. That means ordinary people do not live in accordance with the truth the sages realize. Indeed, if people do live like that way, there are no sages. Section 2. Does man need the sages? Most people do not follow the sages. They do not follow them because of the following reason: what the sages teach seems to be untrue. 1. Bread principally brings happiness, and 2. Rivalry is gain. The sages are indeed not sage, they are invited to go out of society. Man does not need them. However, several persons follow the sages. The question is, are the sages right? To reply to this question, we must investigate their thought. However, they seem to commit this mistake: their words are too difficult to understand. Indeed, their words are difficult to understand because the truth they aim to express is mysterious. This truth is so difficult to understand and so mysterious that today people are inclined to ignore it. What does man seek for his life? He seeks a life without suffering and full of happiness. The sages know that. They seek happiness for man. Therefore, we must endeavor to learn their words. If they are correct, man truly needs the sages. I have been trying to make their words less difficult to understand and their truth less mysterious. I rely on the recent philosophical discovery to represent their thought, that is the truth of the twofold. The sages, I choose Jesus, the Buddha, Lao Tzu, and Confucius move in the twofold. In their lifetime, mankind did not have a clear view of the twofold. Moreover, while they had intuition of the twofold, others did not. Therefore, their words became hard to understand, so hard to understand that they were often misunderstood. The common point of the sages is that they see two shores, the material shore and the shore of the way. Man is an animal that is related to two realities, material and the way. This is a fact. Ordinary people live with the material shore, or at least are inclined to it, and seek happiness in it. According to the sages, that is ignorance or living in darkness. According to them, life with the material shore is suffering and only life with the way is happiness. This is enlightenment or living in light. Section 3. Today, are we living in darkness or in light? Present civilization is called material civilization. The present era is called the era of technology. Human action is founded on profit. Technology or profit indicates material. Man's value is based on his production, not on his way. Therefore, speaking in accordance with the sages, we are living in darkness, not in light. Of course, we can think that the sages are not right. We are living in civilization and in light. Present civilization shows that their words are vague and erroneous because, according to Nietzsche, God is dead. However, I would like to represent their thought in order that everyone can re-examine whether we are living in darkness or in light. For me, we are living in darkness. Section 4. Why is it that, even there are the sages, we are living in darkness? Indeed, there have been the sages. Their thought has been spread in mankind for many centuries. And today mankind advances to the abandonment of their way. In many places people drive the way out of their schools. The way is no longer taught to students because people think that the way is not necessary to human beings. Why do they have that attitude? Is that because they are stupid? I think that the fault is not caused by their ignorance alone. The fault resides in the fact that the way is not rightly taught. In other words, it is the traditional teaching of the way that leads to the abandonment of the way. So, what does the way appear in the traditional interpretation? Generally, the way, Christianity and Buddhism, is taught in such a manner that people understand to follow the way is to sacrifice this life to enter paradise or nirvana in the next life. To follow the way is to sacrifice this life because of the moral austerities. I often talk about going to the other shore, and most of my listeners reply that this shore is full of joys, and they dare not go to the other shore. Today most people think that the other shore is the shore of the old, and their friends are on this shore. The way, Confucianism, has too many duties and violates man's freedom. Following the way requires sacrifice, benevolence, then righteousness, then propriety, then filial piety, then brotherly obedience, then loyalty, then truthfulness. The way, Taoism, is seldom talked about because the way that can be talked about is not the eternal way. Taoism has little influence on people. The way, in the world of Western civilization, is usually understood as Christianity with God as symbol of the way. God and his paradise is being invited to go out of society. Material civilization takes the throne to determine humanity. This occurs because the way is taught a sacrifice of this life to seek paradise in the next life. But this paradise in the next life appears as something that is not like scientific discoveries. Only faith can protect that paradise. However, faith is not blind. Before, when sciences were not as advanced as they are today, people could believe in such a paradise since it was not contrary to their knowledge. Moreover, at the time when people believed in the god of the banyan tree and the ghost of the rice plant, Creator God seemed more reasonable and more suitable to a person's heart. Today, with scientific advances, people hardly believe in such a paradise since it is contrary to their knowledge. God, even if there is God, is not like what is taught about him. Many people abandon the way, the next life is unknown, and so there is no reason to sacrifice this life. Before, I almost lost such a faith. Then at some time I awoke to see that Jesus' kingdom of heaven does not appear only as something that can be gained through the sacrifice of this life to seek the next life. The kingdom of heaven that Jesus teaches appears as kingdom of heaven in this life and maybe in the next life. I see the same nirvana in the Buddha. In Confucianism and Taoism, the way comes to adorn life, brings happiness, gratification, peace, and does not require sacrifice and burden of austerities. So, my view is different from the traditional view, particularly the Christian and Buddhist views. A friend of mine told me, "Your interpretation changes the belief of two great religions. It is difficult for them to accept it?" I replied, "But I only praise Jesus and the Buddha." But to praise Jesus and the Buddha up to the point that traditional preachers do not know can touch their pride and cause their jealousy. I know that. But I think the way of the traditional interpretation is being driven out of society and schools. It is my interpretation that will save the way. This world or the devil is prevailing. And this victory occurs because the way is taught as sacrifice of this life to seek the next life. However, the way that is taught to bring happiness, paradise, nirvana, to this life and as well as maybe to the next life will reign and the devil will be defeated. So, my effort is not only to arouse the sage's thought, but also to arouse it in a different way from the traditional interpretation. I do not arouse a heap of ash but arouse a source of life. The way of the traditional interpretation is out of order. If we continue that way, the devil, this shore, merrily claps his hands because he knows that mankind is moving further away from it. The interpretation of the way as sacrifice this life in favor of the next life leads to an unclear understanding of the way and an incorrect following of the way. A person can go to church or temple every week, open his mouth to utter moral words and then tell a lie because of a small amount of money. Many monks do not clearly understand the way. They choose a secluded life and at the same time they want money, are fond of fame and attempt even the forbidden thing. The truth of the twofold clearly shows two shores, where the shore of lies, suffering is, and where the shore of justice, happiness is. To follow the way is not a sacrifice. We follow the way because we want to live a holy and happy life right here and now, as well as maybe in the next life. Those who teach nirvana or paradise only in the next life are not enlightened. Why? Because if they attain the way, they would see nirvana or paradise right in this very life. Those who are enlightened teach nirvana or paradise not only in the next life but also in this very life. If a person has not attained the way and teaches it, his teaching is hardly authoritative, for he himself does not have a direct knowledge of the way.